Traffic has always been a problem here. This, until very recently, was the biggest city in the world in terms of population. Traffic, it will still be a problem here in the rush hours, but so far today anyway, it's as good as I ever remember it. It doesn't seem to have gotten any worse since I was a kid. Cycle lanes and stuff like that, that's a huge luxury. You'll see the definition of brave. Now, it cost him a year's salary just to get a ding taken out of it. This is the neighbourhood of San Angel, and this is the market in San Angel. Obviously, the city's full of markets. Every neighbourhood will have one just the same, but this was the one closest to where I lived, so it's where I cut my teeth. And it's a crash course in Mexican culture and smells and sights and sounds. It's a good spot to come and have a wander around. They make some fantastic juices here. Obviously, this is a very fertile and bountiful country, and it was in Aztec times. And while we were wallowing up to the ankles in shit and piss in London in the 16th century, these people were living on mineral water. They had beautiful volcanic soils up here, a perfect climate. It's sort of a year-round spring because of the altitude. And so abundant fruit and vegetables. The diet here has always been spectacularly good, incredibly healthy, and it's still there. And so you get juices, and they make juice out of great stuff like beetroot juice, which they call a vampiro, a vampire. You get juices with porridge and raw eggs, and literally you have a meal in a glass. All these little places, and the city just fills up, as it always has done, with perfect produce, meat, fruit, vegetables. How's that for a piñata? Eh? The piñata is a very Mexican thing. It's good fun. They used to make them, and probably these are still made with pottery. They have a big pot inside them, which is lovely to break, but it means if you're standing under it, then it's going to hit you and break your head as well. My old man once, at one of his work parties, had a piñata. And got hit in the head and big bloody gash and everything, but it's the price of partying, you know.
That's a seriously impressive display.
These here, oh, you shit yourself when you say, look, those are spring onions. They roast them up, they barbecue them up until they get a little bit soft inside. And this isn't, a high-density garden. This is off of, many of these things will come from the original Aztec floating gardens. We're a little bit south of here is what's left of the old Lake of Mexico. And in Aztec times, what they used to do with like pond weeds and pond plants that float, they would be able to tie together what in effect were islands and tether them and plant certain trees that would stake them into the lake, and what they have is floating patches of garden, and they tend them by boat. I'll tell you what's another great vegetable which is worth trying. Cactus leaf. And literally all they've done with a machete is take the spikes off of them, and then you can do whatever you like with it. Fry it. And there it is. Not very strong flavored, but you can have it in tacos. You can make juice from it. They make tortillas with it now. They grind it into flour. I tend to go for the stuff that I can't get at home. So although the asparagus is fantastic and all these different things, there are certain things which you can only get here, like your green tomatoes and your nopal, and it's really worth trying. They're spectacular, and you can see them here if you get the chance, especially if you get something like a catered apartment with a little kitchen. You can come and buy your own stuff and wash it and cook it yourself and have a culinary holiday. pone 2 de suadero y una orden de cebollitas, por favor. Órale, gracias. Y it's good fresh food. And like logically, it's relatively safe stuff to eat. I mean, it's freshly cooked and the turnover is amazing in these places. It's all good produce. We've seen the produce inside and it should be safe as houses. The other thing too to remember is that Chile, the sauces will have a bit of water and stuff in them, but Chile kills most of your bacteria. So it's a good trick to remember, even if you're eating oysters. An oyster that you put pepper sauce on or Tabasco and leave it for a couple minutes will also be sanitized. Have the worst germs will be killed. Ale, gracias. ¿Cuánto le debo? Breakfast. Puts the full English in perspective, doesn't it? Su salsita. It's a great way to wake up. Chili's a great way to wake up. It's better than coffee. Now what we'll do is displace a bit of that. I'm of the mind that if you come to the place, you want to feel that you're really there and you want to live it a little bit like a local. So San Angel is a safe place to do that. It feels chaotic and it's authentic. It's very, very Mexican, but it's a safe corner to do that and a nice place to see. It's a good place to get in the deep end without freaking out and without losing contact with your comfort zone. Hence, and on the back, I mean, this is the chaotic little, the fringe of the neighborhood, but in the back of here is actually a very, very quaint, original Spanish colonial neighborhood, San Angelin, which has been there for centuries, and which is a wealthy part of the city to live in, and houses some of the famous exiles of Mexico and many great artists and names from the history of Mexico. Just kind of live up in the back here. So this is the road you arrive by, but the more you come into the neighborhood, it becomes very cobbled and quaint, and there's some fabulous examples of Spanish colonial architecture, and essentially a good place to have a wander around and feel like you're discovering the country for the first time, but without being in the wrong part of town, where you feel you're going to be attacked or something's going to happen. So this is a good place to taste it from scratch. This place is still cracking. My school is a short walk from here, and the reason I know this place is that it was a short walk from geography and from maths and from history and chemistry and physics, and so it seemed a sensible thing as a young man to make that walk because I could always catch up tomorrow. What happened is that I never quite caught up the geography and history or the math or the physics, but I know a good tequila when I taste one. This is a real cantina in the Mexican style. It's very friendly. The owner remembers me. His father ran it before him, so it might look rustic and threatening, but actually it's a very civilized spot, and it's a real cantina in the sense that in Mexico, certainly since the revolution, cantinas were protected territories. They were sanctuaries like churches, And so it was illegal. There used to be a sign on the door up until well into the 1980s. There used to be a sign banning people in uniform and also women. And people in uniform because policemen couldn't come in and hassle you. So what happened in a cantina stayed in a cantina, and it was like a man's right to have his space. And for the same reason, I guess, women, which is the wrong reason. Except that also that you didn't necessarily want them, you know, you didn't want to offend them. So there used to be, now they've put a door on the urinal. The urinal used to just be open. Now there's a door on it, but there's still no ladies' toilet, so the girls are allowed to come in. Say a word to the camera. This is part of drinking tequila. The way to drink it, the question of the salt and lemon is mostly a myth. The best way to drink it is to ask for a blood or a sangrita, which a good cantina like this one will have homemade. It's based on tomato juice, but they'll add lime, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of Tabasco. It's almost like a very citrusy Bloody Mary mix, and tequila goes beautifully with it. So these days the tequila is good enough that you don't have to down it in one. You can sip it. It's a sipping drink. You take a sip of your tequila. Salud. Which is as smooth as a cognac these days. If you get a tequila of blue agave, like Don Julio or something, it's the equivalent of an Islay single malt compared to a regular Scotch whiskey. A sip of tequila, a sip of sangrita. And they go very, very well together.
O sea, hay una contesta a eso, ¿no? Que el peso se rebaja, pero lo pendejo nunca se quita.
Por esa compadre, no me la sabía. Pero me la sabía. Saludita.
Contesta para todo.
That feels better. Now it's a proper Wednesday. So, back to geography.